As you know, 2024 was the global year of elections. Here at TLDR, we made over 175 election-related videos across all of our channels, covering a quarter of the countries in the world. And we even made a whole magazine about the biggest elections, and the last few copies are still available. But actually, despite it now being 2025, the momentum hasn't slowed down. Some countries like Romania, Venezuela, and maybe even France are seeing their electoral chaos spill over from 2024 into 2025, while others like Canada, Australia, and Norway are scheduled to have their new elections this year, and maybe new governments too. So in this video, we'll discuss some of the biggest elections coming up in 2025, and what might happen in them. Who's the most influential person in the world? No, really, who is it? Cast your vote and help form our official ranking by clicking the link in the description. First up is the German federal election on the 23rd of February. Germany ended 2024 in coalition chaos after Chancellor Olaf Scholz fired his finance minister Christian Lindner of the centre-right Free Democratic Party, or FDP, due to ongoing tensions and disagreements over the budget. As the head of a weaker two-party minority government, Scholz called a vote of confidence in December. He then lost that vote, triggering a snap federal election. This election is highly likely to be won by the centre-right Christian Democratic Union Party, formerly led by Angela Merkel, which is well ahead in the polls. On the other hand, the parties from Scholz's former traffic light coalition are expected to do badly, having all been beaten by the far-right AfD at the European elections in June. However, over the past couple of weeks, the SPD's national polling has ticked up and now appears to be closing in on the AfD. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here, i.e. whether the AfD finishes second and becomes Germany's main opposition party for the first time, or whether Germany instead chooses to vote the incumbent SPD, a long-established mainstream party, into the opposition. Next up, though, is Canada. They're scheduled to hold a federal election by October, but it's possible that it could come sooner rather than later, as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's approval ratings are tanking, and recent surveys suggest that most Canadians are now in favour of early elections. While Trudeau has said that he'll run for a fourth term as leader of the Liberal Party, there are loud rumblings within the party calling for him to step down. This follows the unexpected resignation of Chrystia Freeland, Trudeau's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, from her cabinet posts, making her the latest in a series of Trudeau ministers to quit. Trudeau then reshuffled his cabinet, but it seems that Canadians are just tired of him, and the Conservatives, led by Pierre Poilievre, are now leading the polls by a healthy margin, largely thanks to Poilievre's confrontational style. Possibly the biggest hint of early elections, though, is the left-wing New Democratic Party's leader, Jagmeet Singh, saying that he'll vote to topple the Liberal government in the next parliamentary sitting. The only question, then, is whether it will still be Trudeau leading the Liberals into the next campaign. Next up is Ecuador's general election in February. This is to elect both the president and members of parliament, the National Assembly. Incumbent centre-right president Daniel Noboa is running for re-election, which he's expected to win, although possibly by a narrower margin than he'd like. Noboa has only been in office for 13 months, having been elected to complete the term of his predecessor Guillermo Lasso, who invoked a constitutional measure known as muerte cruzada to prevent himself from being impeached. In this brief time, Noboa has made a positive impression on the electorate, largely through a popular crackdown on gangs, which he's described as a war, arresting at least 6,000 gang members and contributing to a reported 19% drop in homicide rates between 2023 and 2024. However, Noboa's approval rating did fall in autumn last year, as the government was slow to respond to blackouts caused by a drought that drastically reduced hydroelectric power, which supplies about 80% of Ecuador's electricity, leading to accusations that Noboa's administration is a government of improvisations. Romania's election is actually a rerun of 2024's, which was annulled due to voting irregularities. Back in November, a far-right pro-Russian university professor, Calin Georgescu, stormed to victory with a 22.9% vote share, beating the leaders of the two largest parties, the Social Democrats and the Liberals. Few could understand how this happened, though, given that Georgescu was virtually unknown before the election, having been polling on about 5%. With doubt cast over the election, in December, Romania's constitutional court, which had only days before confirmed the results of the first round, then controversially annulled them after declassified information suggested that Russia had organized a huge social media campaign promoting Georgescu. However, the decision was also criticized by another candidate, Elena Lasconi of the centre-right Save Romania Union, who was due to face and probably would have beaten Georgescu in the second round. The rerun is set for spring, and we'll see Georgescu face off against Lasconi and others for a second time. Now to Australia, where the incumbent Labour Party looks like it will lose its governing majority at the federal election in May. The centre-right Liberal National Coalition is polling narrowly ahead of Labour on a two-party preferred basis, with around 51% compared to Labour's 49%. According to The Guardian's Essential poll, incumbent Labour Prime Minister Anthony Albanese finished 2024 with a net approval rating of -11. Meanwhile, opposition leader Peter Dutton's net approval rating ticked up to 3% in mid-December, although Dutton's popularity appears to divide men and women, with a net approval rating of +15 among men and -7 among women. Albanese has also come under fire for failing to deliver a $275 annual reduction in energy bills, and his government has failed to convince the electorate that the country is doing better than it was 3 years ago, with 40% of Australians saying they're worse off, 35% saying they're doing about the same, and just 25% agreeing that they're better off. Next up, on May 12th, the Philippines will hold a midterm congressional election at the halfway point of President Bongbong Marcos' term. Philippine politics is currently dominated by a major and deeply hostile feud between the previously allied Marcos and Duterte families, with the feud heating up ahead of this year's midterms and the presidential election in 2028. The midterms are an opportunity for President Marcos to consolidate his power in Congress, and should Marcos' clan succeed, could prove difficult for former President Rodrigo Duterte and his daughter Sara, the incumbent vice president, to mount a comeback and avoid the various legal challenges they face. Another intense rivalry between former allies is playing out in Bolivia too, which will hold a general election in August. Incumbent leftist President Luis Arce faces a slowing economy, growing poverty, and social unrest, fueled by his ex-ally, former President Evo Morales, who has accused the considerably unpopular Arce of orchestrating a fake coup last year in order to drum up support. Morales has also been seeking a political comeback, but has been barred from running again, having already served 2 terms. With claims of coups, assassination attempts, and a pending rape investigation into Morales, tensions will likely only increase as the election approaches. Czechia is also set to hold a general election by October, which will likely oust the current Prime Minister Petra Fiala, who, according to some polls, is Europe's least popular leader. Last year's European and regional elections were seen as a test of popularity for Fiala and the 5 governing parties, but they performed badly, losing seats in regional assemblies and vote share in the European Parliament. To make matters worse, the Pirate Party also quit the ruling coalition. It seems highly unlikely that the 4 remaining government parties will be able to defend their majority in these 2025 elections then. Now, let's move over to Norway, where incumbent Labour Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre is likely to be replaced by a right-wing leader in September. Either Conservative former Prime Minister Ernest Solberg or the Progress Party's Sylvie Listhaug. Current opinion polls suggest that the anti-immigration Progress Party is surging ahead, largely thanks to Listhaug, who was previously named a rising star within the party, with the support of its longtime former chairman, Carl Hagen. The Progress Party has also benefited from the failures of the current centre-left government, including internal scandals and disagreement over what to do with Norway's immense oil and gas reserves. To win back support, Støre has hinted at lowering taxes for most people, increasing housing support for young people, and raising spending from Norway's massive sovereign wealth fund. Venezuela's 2025 elections are likely to be neither free nor fair, forming part of its ongoing political crisis. Left-wing President Nicolas Maduro, who was confirmed as the winner of July's presidential election, despite evidence that it was rigged, has announced that the country will hold joint elections this year to select a new 277-seat parliament, 335 municipal mayors, and 23 regional governors. Maduro said that his administration is re-engineering the electoral system to determine methods and identify candidates for the various positions. He also stated that groups that don't recognize the country's legally established powers shouldn't participate in the elections, likely laying the groundwork for more electoral controversy. Elsewhere in South America, Chile will also go to the polls in late November to elect a new president, with a likely top two runoff in December. The youthful incumbent Gabriel Boric is constitutionally barred from seeking another term, and his left-wing ruling alliance is said to be struggling to find a strong candidate. Meanwhile, the right-wing opposition has found a seemingly strong potential candidate in former Providencia Mayor Evelyn Matei, who currently leads opinion polls, likely benefiting from the fact that crime appears to be a major issue for Chilean voters. Finally, a note about the US gubernatorial elections in Virginia and New Jersey in November. While these offices have little impact federally, their result will tell us a lot. Virginia and New Jersey were unexpectedly close during the 2024 presidential race, with the Democrats' Kamala Harris only winning both states by 6 points, while Biden had won both by double digits in 2020. Governors' races usually go to the party out of power, so the Democrats should still do well. But the question will be by how much? A strong Democratic victory will show early warnings for the Republicans in the 2026 midterms, while a narrow victory, or even a defeat for the Democrats, could expose broader problems within the party that still haven't been fixed. Now, this list isn't exhaustive, and there's lots more elections happening in 2025 than we could fit into this video. Plus, there's likely to be some shock elections that none of us even saw coming. After all, if the elections in 2024 taught us anything, we should expect the unexpected. So if you want to head into 2025 feeling on top of everything that happened last year, or if you want something to commemorate the crazy year we just went through in politics, then consider picking up a copy of our magazine, Too Long, where the election special dives deep into 29 major elections from around the world. We don't just discuss elections, though. We also run through China's trade issues, Biden's successes and failures, the UK's new opposition leader, and the state of the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. Plus, the fact it's a magazine also means that we're not constrained by the time limits or algorithms imposed by YouTube. Unlike fleeting news cycles and algorithmic feeds, Too Long offers thought-provoking analysis and comprehensive coverage that's truly worth holding. Purchasing is also a great way to support the channel. Running TLDR in 2024 cost just over £800,000. So if you've enjoyed our coverage, then picking up a copy of Too Long doesn't just get you high-quality reporting, it also allows you to invest in independent journalism and join us in shaping the future of news. Also, if you want to support us long-term, you can also subscribe to Too Long to get a copy every 4 months. As a thank you, subscribers also get 25% off every issue as long as they stay subscribed, which is pretty huge. Find out more and pick up a copy at toolong.news or by clicking the link in the description. Thanks for your support, and thanks for backing Too Long.